a funny thing about Ben Snow, which I think we might have mentioned on a couple of different episodes of VFX Notes, is that he's in the film, which is really funny as a cameo, as an Australian storm chaser, because Ben is Australian, wearing this crazy, I think, yellow or orange rain jacket, and saying this very non-Australian phrase, but which people outside of Australia think we say, which is "you little beauty." And I mean, I've never said that in my life. This podcast is brought to you by Befores and Afters magazine. Befores and Afters magazine is the monthly print mag from VFX journalist Ian Fales. Go in-depth on key visual effects topics with major VFX supervisors, artists and studios. Each issue covers a different area like creature animation, miniatures, on-set VFX and VFX tools. Find your copy at beforesandafters.com/magazine.
This podcast is also brought to you by Hugo's Desk new compositing course. Join today to have access to 150 pre-recorded classes, 50 hours of training, using real production assets covering industry standard techniques with over 200 gigs of showreel material and access to a private Discord channel with over 2,300 students. This course is endorsed by Foundry and has access to a Foundry student license paid separately. Join today at hugosdesk.myshopify.com. And now on to the show.
Hi everybody, I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and as always, I'm joined by Hugo Desk from Hugo's Garage.
I love that. Should I change my channel's name now? That's so good.
I mean Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Oh my god, so sorry.
It's fine. I'm gonna leave that.
My excuse would be that it's 1:30 a.m. in the morning, but it's not for me. Hugo's recording this, I think, at 1:30 a.m. Aren't you, Hugo?
It's like morning for me. It's fine. Besides, I'm gonna of course apologize to everyone that I do have a cold, and so I'm a bit runny and a bit nasal. So apologies for that.
Hope you feel better, Hugo. These latest run of episodes are films that didn't make a VFX Oscar nomination, but were in the bake-off, i.e. they were in the top 10 films listed for consideration. And today we're going to talk about Twisters, right, Hugo?
What? No. We're talking about Twisters now? No. Come on, man. I thought we were going to talk about Formula 1. That's why I brought my Ferrari shirt. The Australian Grand Prix. That's what you told me we're going to do.
Like, oh, the Australian Grand Prix.
Twisters now? Yes. Because I know you love Formula 1 so much, don't you? We can do an episode about Formula 1 this week, and then next week we can do one about cricket.
Oh, I don't know if I should reveal what I just told you, which is that I kind of feel like car racing is boring, but then I totally admit that I love cricket, which a lot of people would find really boring.
Man, I didn't even notice. I didn't do this on purpose. I have a mug from Silverstone with the Formula 1 track. I kid you not, I did not do this on purpose. It was the first mug I picked up, and it's topical for what we're talking about today. It's insane.
The truth is, Hugo, I just need to go to a race. I have never been to one,
it's cool,
and I
man.
think people love the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's great.
My family in England live near Goodwood, so
that's a great place. Yeah.
You know, they talk about it a bit, but I've never actually been.
We're going together. We're going to do that.
Okay.
We're going to do that. I'll go and meet you at Australia, and we'll go to the Australian Grand Prix. Maybe we do that.
Yeah. It was packed in Melbourne, and it was this crazy, weird, hot day.
475,000 people, man, watching it.
Yeah. Huge,
it's almost
right?
500,000. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you. Twisters it is.
Twisters, which, you know, is obviously a film that came out in 2024, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who had done Minari, which I remember being a really, really beautiful film, and then being surprised that he was the director on Twisters. But, you know, who knows how these directors get selected. Twisters probably has quite a long development cycle, seeing as, you know, the first film was so successful, I bet there was always a push for a sequel. But we usually start these episodes, Hugo, with our view on Twisters. So tell us about what you thought of the film.
So I was well. First of all, I love the first Twisters. We've done episodes about it. We actually did 2 episodes about it, and so I was very skeptical about this because I was like, do we need a Twister sequel? I mean, we lost one of the greatest actors ever lived, and he's not even around to do. Bill Paxton wasn't around to do the episode anymore, film anymore. There was a lot of talk about a sequel going around, so I was very skeptical about this. And then Ellen Hunt, she hasn't been doing movies for a long time. I think she's retired probably. So I was really thinking, this is probably going to be a cash grab. I don't know if this is going to be something I'm going to enjoy. But I'll be very honest, Ian. I went to the cinema to see it with really no expectations whatsoever, and it was great. I really liked it. I thought the film was really funny, and I thought the actors were great, and the film looked great as well. It was a really nice, simple story, and it was just like the first Twisters. It was like this really fun, entertaining movie with a lot of characters, and isn't it like it's just that kind of jovial movie. It's really fun to watch, and I really enjoyed Glenn Powell on it. I thought he was fantastic on the movie. He's so funny on the movie, and it's just what we needed. Just a really relaxing movie to go. It's a cinema movie. You know what I mean? Like it's a real cinema movie. Popcorn movie.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Except for this. I seriously love Twisters at the cinema. It was really a great experience, and that's the visuals, the simple story, and the sound as well. Because that's actually my memory of the first film.
Yeah,
is that I remember being blown away by the visual effects and by ILM in that film, but equally blown away by the sound production. Yeah, and I think possibly, although I haven't researched this, it was one of those early films using DTS and just really taking advantage of surround sound in a big cinema. With this film, I did enjoy it, and I did sort of follow along and enjoyed all the different Twisters, tornadoes we see. I think there's about 10 of them. What I had remembered, though, believe it or not, from the first film, was that I felt more like it was a bit of a horror film, the first film. Yeah. And that's because these Twisters are really threatening Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton the whole time. Even though they're wisecracking and it's kind of fun and there's a love story going on, I would almost pitch the first film as almost like a horror film. Yeah. In this film, maybe it's because of the technology they're using and because, as storm chasers, and also our current understanding of tornadoes and the weather, I didn't feel like the characters were ever scared of a twister.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that's despite the deaths that occur in the first 5 minutes, right?
I know what you mean.
And I was curious about that. I was curious about that tone of Twisters.
Well, you're dead right. And I do think the beginning of the movie is really dark. It's actually the only thing that is really close to the first Twister. Yeah. And because, they all died. It's a quite dark story. And then she has the dreams and she actually leaves. I know what you mean. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And it's like you have this YouTuber that is chasing tornadoes and you have all this new gear that can chase. But I do think that it's relevant to the times that we're living now, because there are a lot of YouTubers doing this.
That's true.
And there are a lot of people online that chase tornadoes, which to their peril. It's not something they should do, but they still do it. And I know what you mean, because it doesn't, although it has this entire side of the dark side of property and insurance companies, and it has this kind of corporate side that is trying to kind of rip off people when they're most vulnerable. It's a really cool aspect of the film.
I like that bit, actually.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. The film is not as dark as the first one. It's not as serious, and you never really Yeah, I know what you mean, and actually, I don't think I even thought about that. Like I didn't even
It's
thought
just
about.
different. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. The antagonist in the film is this crazy insurance approach that they're sort of ripping off people. And the tornadoes are certainly antagonists too, but not in the same way as the first film. And I think you can justify it by saying, well, we've had 2 decades of amazing scientific 3D weather research and stuff like that, and they're using all this equipment to do it. And so they're not as concerned about getting blown away by a twister, by a tornado, even though that's exactly what happens in the first 5 minutes. So anyway, but I still had a really good time. I actually, as good as Glenn Powell is, and he's the hot thing at the moment, right? He was in just about everything last year, and the year before. I think Daisy Edgar-Jones as Kate in this film is just fantastic and does
great.
stellar job. I also loved where they went in the final film with their love story, which is they don't really hook up, you know.
Well,
it keeps not really.
It keeps it open, which is nice.
Yeah,
It's
a good way to do it.
I do think they hook up because she turns to him on the airport and says that phrase, you know, like, if you don't chase it, you don't get it. And so she's already calling him. And then at the end, you have this kind of B-roll footage of them together doing the YouTube channel and everything. I think they got together, but it wasn't as important as on the first movie.
It wasn't necessary for them to have a huge kiss.
And also, like,
love.
I guess maybe the new generation is not really expecting those things to happen anymore, and I think I get it. I actually thought it was actually nice not to have it, to keep it open. Thought it was quite nice because the film is a bit old fashioned sometimes, but in that sense, the film was really kind of like, and there's other parts of the movie that you kind of can see that's going to happen. You see the mother character, which is great as well. Mara Therese is playing the mother, and she's really funny on the movie. And she's the one also telling him, you know what you're going to get, you know, like you can kind of see that they are getting in love and they're going to get together. It's just that it's leaving it open. I think it's really smart. I just feel that this film is not to be taken seriously, really. It's a bit dumb. It's a bit silly, and it's like some of these things are probably incredibly wrong scientifically. They're probably not even possible. It doesn't really matter because I was just really enjoying watching the movie, and I don't often enjoy it so much, like really brainless movies, because this film is really an entertainment movie, a pure entertainment movie, and I really enjoyed it. And I say this because the second time, I only recently watched the second time. It was yesterday. I watched it again. And when I first saw it, I wasn't that into it. Second time really took me, man. I really enjoyed watching it the second time. I thought the film has really grown on me. And I love that they didn't... I really think it's really smart that they have no attachment to the first one whatsoever. You know, she's not a daughter of Alan Hunt. There's no connection. There's no family relationship. Which
can be really clunky, can't it?
Yeah.
It's like the daughter who wants to take revenge on a twister or follow in her father's footsteps or whatever it is. It can be clunky when you try and do that. And they just ignored it and didn't do it, which is good. Yeah,
I think it was a good idea, and so I enjoyed it. I really did, and I think maybe there will be a third. I don't know, like I see a world where we could definitely have a third twister, and it's something else again, complete different story again, just another twisters. You know.
Do you know also why I really liked it? And this is related to the visual effects work.
Yeah.
Is that we have actually seen some storm-related films since Twister.
Yeah.
And we've seen tornado films since Twister. And I've always felt that they were just on the cheap side.
Yeah.
And the disaster movie side of showing tornadoes or twisters or hurricanes in a film. And because Twister's effects were so beautifully done, and, you know, at the time, 1996, I think, were just whoa, how did ILM even do this? You know, they've stood the test of time. So when they came to Twisters, I just felt like they did take it seriously in terms of the look and feel of them. You know, we'll talk about it in a minute, but ILM certainly did a lot of reference shoots and research. And yes, okay, there are firenados in the film and all this sort of thing. And it's a film, so, you know, it has to be a little bit more dramatic. But what I'm getting at is that everything felt realistic and felt naturalistic. Yeah. Whereas in a bigger disaster film, you know, it's like a bit more crazy and whatnot. So there was, I'm going to say the word grounded, which every visual effects supervisor wants and director wants it to be. But I really do think this film pulled it off, you know.
Yeah, no, it did.
That look and feel.
And you can kind of see that on when you look at the breakdown, the really cool breakdown from ILM, you see what happened on set, because you see that they actually shot all these shots. There's a couple of exceptions, like during the fire tornado, there's a few full CG shots, even with the truck, but most shots are actually shot on a place where you have a truck and you actually have a field and you actually have a lot of wind machines and you have a lot of debris flying through and you have a lot of water flying through. They did a fantastic job on set of filming as much as they could on set to really have the hair of the actors blowing away and have really the shakiness of the time. I think just like on the first movie, the approach was the correct approach, you know.
Yeah, the legacy of the first movie is, as well as ILM's incredible digital visual effects, there was this push for realism from practical at the time, especially like using a jet engine and things like this. And it's very famous that they used a jet engine on set. But it's not like they just went, oh, we can do everything in CG, in Twisters. They just didn't say that. And I'm so glad to report that you can feel you can feel the characters getting blown away. And I think even Ben Snow, who's the production visual effects supervisor, mentions in one breakdown I've seen that they were always aiming for the first 60 feet of weather to be achieved with special effects.
Yeah.
And then whatever needed to be extended, including, of course, the tornadoes, but even if it needed to be extended in the foreground, you know, they would match whatever was shot as elements with CG. And people will say, well, of course that's what they do in these big films. Like, what are you talking about, Ian? But actually, no. Sometimes they just won't spend the money on this kind of practical effects approach.
And not only they don't spend the money, but there's a huge legacy of really poorly made tornado and weather-related movies for the last 15 years, where they look really fake, and you can see the actors are just on a soundstage and they have like a little fan. You feel that on those really bad movies, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of weather related big movies that came out in the last 20 years. And no, I really advise people to watch the breakdown from ILM, which is on their YouTube channel. It's fantastic, and I know it's short, but you see the rigs on the cars, and you see all these fans and all this water. Not to mention, you see all the references of the amount of footage they took for real at the time of actually chasing storms. But and I think that's why the film looks so good, because you really, and also the cinematography of the film is really close quarters. You're always really close to them, and you really like in there, in the bus, in the car, the camera is always very close to them, and that really worked really well, because then when you cut in between these massive scenes with the twisters, it really buys you the scene. Although even when you cut to the wide ones, they still made the full plate, although they replaced most of it because they needed all the wind on the fields, and so of course they ended up replacing the fields anyway in CG so they could have the strong winds. But it's really well achieved. And I
was going to say, Hugo, you mentioned the cinematography there. One of the reasons this film looks so good is it's Dan Mindell.
Yeah,
and he has had this experience on the big Star Trek films and Star Wars films, of course, and Enemy of the State, Mission Impossible 3. He knows how to make a visual effects film, but also he's got such a great approach to cinematography. One thing I love to do is check out his Instagram every now and then.
Oh, yeah?
And he is one of those DOPs who is really good about posting a few behind-the-scenes images.
Yeah.
And he's got a couple on his Insta for Twisters, which is fun. Fun to see them, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why I think I connected with the movie a bit more as well. And at some point, not only it's a great legacy to connect with the original movie, because it kind of feels like that they've done it in the same way than the original movie. The only difference is the computers are better now, so they can do a better job with the twisters. Because they can, but it's ILM again, so it's like just prolonging their legacy. And
not only ILM, Ben Snow worked, as I say, the production VFX soup on this film worked on the original film.
Yeah.
So the production VFX soup was Stefan Fangmeier on the first one, and Ben was, a CG soup, I believe, on the first film. Yeah. And I think, he's done a lot, Ben Snow, including some Iron Man films and whatnot, but he definitely brings that legacy, right? That he knew what they had to achieve on the first film, and basically ILM has upped the ante in a ridiculous way on this on Twisters.
But the funny thing about that is that, yes, ILM did a fucking amazing job with the VFX, but aren't we getting all... I was watching the movie and I was thinking, man, this is so good, but we are so used to amazing VFX by now that this film can't even get to the Oscars now. This film is so good, and it still doesn't make it to the final five. This is where we are now. Not even this film can get it, and this is a really stunning piece of work from FX and VFX, but the quality bar is so high that not even Twisters gets through to the final nominations.
Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary if you start thinking about it.
That's true. I mean, it was a tough year this year, and the 5 films in the end were fantastic.
Well, I know what it could have happened. They could have not done Wicked and put Twisters in between. Because I love Wicked,
Well, sometimes what the Academy branch is looking for is new stuff. And it's not like ILM didn't have a whole new way of dealing with skies and clouds and physically based stuff, right? That's the big change, of course, since the first film, is not just that it looks better because we're rendering better and doing better comps or whatever, but we're actually realizing this stuff based on actual science of cloud density and moisture, like all the stuff, And so that's all new. But in terms of the Academy considering what's this film brought to the table.
Because it's too similar to the first one.
Possibly. I mean, gosh, it got in the 10, which is hard enough. So, I was going to say a funny thing about Ben Snow, which I think we might have mentioned on a couple of different episodes of VFX Notes, is that he's in the film, which is really funny as a cameo. As an Australian storm chaser, because Ben is Australian, wearing this crazy, I think, yellow or orange rain jacket, and saying this very non-Australian phrase, but which people outside of Australia think we say, which is "you little beauty." And I mean, I've never said that in my life. But we also said on previous episodes, Hugo, that there was this run of films from the Bake Off where the visual effects supervisor makes a cameo. So Ben is one. The Weather Effects VFX supervisor for Better Man is in the film as a digital double, and which I think is really fun. And then Framestore's visual effects supervisor for Wicked is in the film as the wizard in a sort of water hologram projection in Emerald City. So I think that's really funny that 3 of the films in the Bake Off have cameos from the VFX soup.
I'm expecting, this is starting to grow so much now. I'm expecting one day we're gonna have one of these actors actually become a really famous actor. Imagine that one of these VFX supervisors becomes an actor for real, you know. I mean, but we had this before, Ian, didn't we? Like, I mean, wasn't the case that we had a really famous we had not a famous, but a VFX artist that became a famous actor? I can't remember his name, but from this TV show called Heroes?
That's right. I think you're talking about Masahiro Oka. Probably mispronounced the name. I'm really sorry. But he was in Heroes, very recognizable character actor, but had worked at ILM, you know, as a digital artist. And I mean, I would love to know that story about how he sort of went from working on Perfect Storm and Pirates of the Caribbean to being an actor on Heroes and other shows as well.
He worked on the original on the prequel trilogy from Star Wars as well. Man, he's my favorite actor of the show. Like, I really liked Heroes. I thought Heroes was a great show.
Yeah,
I really thought it was a fantastic show. And he was definitely my favorite part of the whole show. He was a really good actor.
Yeah, we should ask supporters if they can think of any other actors who were VFX people and vice versa. That would be fun.
But you know, he's still around. He's doing a Y50, you know. He's like still working on the show.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a couple of episodes with him. He's still there. So I think he's still fully working as an actor. It's really funny. But yeah, saying this because so many VFX supervisors are now involved on becoming cameos. You never know, man. You never know. Maybe we'll have another one of these situations. It would be nice. It would be quite nice.
Yeah, so that's Ben Snow, really nice guy as well. And actually, there'll be a whole magazine on Twisters coming to Befores and Afters.
Oh, that's cool.
Very soon. I wanted to also shout out to something we kind of mentioned before, Hugo, which was all the reference shooting and storm chasing that was done for this film by production, but also led by ILM. In my coverage, eventually, you'll see they had this amazing kind of second unit on-set VFX soup who became the guy to go and take photography, HDMIs, time-lapse photography of storms all around the Midwest USA, which is, you know, where these tornadoes turn up. And at View Conference, one of the VFX soups from ILM, Florian Wenzel, showed this little short film that this on-set VFX soup created, which was like a really, really beautiful ode to weather and tornadoes. And just like, if you're an on-set VFX geek kind of person, which I think you are actually, Hugo, you would have loved this. And he just got the most incredible imagery. You see some of this imagery in ILM's breakdown.
Yeah.
You know, where they show tiles of different cloud formations and weather. And of course, ILM is using that, like, sometimes directly for background plates, and then also as reference for how do clouds behave as a funnel of a tornado, you know, connects to the clouds, connects to the ground, connects to the sky. But my favorite thing about the making of this film is almost the on-set reference gathered, which ILM really went to great heights to produce.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because if you think about it, on the original movie, it wasn't really that easy because you have like, really, we were still in 96. There isn't really a lot of high definition cameras going around.
Yes.
Especially high definition cameras to film something like this with these kind of weathers. And now, man, we can use a 4K, 8K, 6K, 12K camera to do any of this.
That's the big benefit.
It's a huge, you can have all these references. It's just like humongous, the difference. And that's why you can really go deep into how these tornadoes look. You know, I know on the first movie, we all have probably our favorite parts and all favorite tornadoes, because the first movie is so so famous, and it really made a really impact on me, because it was one of my first DVDs. In fact, as I read really recently, I read this for this show. I didn't realize this, and I don't think I said this on the original Twister episode we did, but this was actually one of the first movies ever released on DVD ever, which means it was according to the story of DVDs, and so it was one of the first movies to have a commentary and a documentary and a behind the scenes, and it was really remarkable because it's a great edition, the original movie. I don't think the second movie has as much behind the scenes. Unfortunately, now we're living on a different time, of course, in different era. A lot of it is online and a lot of it is on YouTube, so you have to kind of look for it. But there's some cool stuff around for you to check. But talking about the favorite ones, like I really liked all the tornadoes on the movie, but I was really quite enamored with the fire ones. I thought that was fucking amazing. It was so cool to have fire tornadoes.
Yeah.
It was like the next step. Like I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, really.
No. Can we call those firenados or something?
Hey,
Hugo?
we have the Sharknado, so we can definitely have the Firenado. You remember Sharknado?
Well, that's the kind of bad tornado films I was thinking
we should
of.
do a movie. We should do an episode about Sharknado.
The Firenado work is actually so good because it, of course, also incorporates essentially a completely digital steelworks or whatever that is, that the tornado has hit and then has caught fire on. And there are times when the Ram truck is situated and trying to escape from that Firenado, that it's completely digital. So there is, and then times when, of course, it's plate photography. So ILM there has done a stellar job of creating these completely virtual environments, plus effect sims, but then matching it to what could be filmed around that sequence. Yeah. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, to make it look real, but not just feel like a crazy third act, big, adventure sequence. Because it does actually feel quite threatening. When I was talking before about, I don't think I was scared, or they weren't scared of any of the tornadoes, that's probably the one they are scared of. Right.
Yeah, you're right, and just the sheer scale of it is really good. Like I think the ILM did an amazing job with the simulations to make them look huge, because it's always a bit of a problem to make them look big enough, And I think on the original movie, there's a few things that don't look as huge as they should look. Really, it's really difficult for you to do the simulations back then in '96, but I think this time they really pulled it off. But yeah, because
just to talk about that for a minute, I mean, I personally think of tornadoes as very hard things to pull off in visual effects.
Yeah.
As a non-artist, I have to say that. Yeah. But a creature, I can sort of, you can think about the concept art, modeling something, texturing something, animating something, and then doing all the kinds of rendering, compositing. With a twister and a tornado, you have to sort of make decisions about what it is that we're animating. Like, is it the funnel only? Is it the vapor cloud? Is there debris? And there's also, like, the thing, as I mentioned, connecting the tornado to the sky, or some sort of shelf cloud. And what ILM has had to do to combat that problem is think about all those things as separate elements, right? And of course, some of it is animatable, but often much of it is about some sort of effects generation or effects simulation done in Houdini, done in ILM's fluid solver tools. And then the real challenge is combining all those to feel like one kind of thing. And as I keep saying, I think a creature is easier to do in some ways, but a tornado, which is kind of a creature in the film, there's 10 of them, I just felt like that's a harder thing to pull off, and they totally did pull it off. which is awesome to see.
Well, especially this one, and you're right. It's like a creature, but it's like a Godzilla, right? Isn't it? Because it's like destroying everything around it.
Yeah, as well as that.
Especially like this oil refinery scene that they destroy. So it's like you're making the creature, but then you have to destroy all the trees, and then you have to destroy all the grass, and then you have to destroy all these debris and the cars flying and the pieces of wood, and it's just a massive kind of destruction scene. And this thing is really a long sequence, because you have all of this sequence with the refinery being destroyed, but then it just keeps going all the way to the cinema, and then it keeps going all the way to the city, and then until she finally kind of tames the beast and kind of stops the twister. So it's a quite long beast that keeps growing, from like the last 20 minutes of the movie,
Yeah. When ILM got to the EL5 tornadoes, I think they were the ones that felt much more like the horror film that I remembered from the first Twister. And, I'm pretty sure that I've read or been doing some interviews that those were so complex that ILM needed to do things like break them up into 3D volumetric tiles, which they didn't necessarily need to do for the more agile tornadoes. There's so much complexity on screen that this is why those breakdowns are so super cool, Hugo, because you actually get to see inside the tornadoes a bit. In the film, simply because it's weather and raining and it's dark, sometimes the detail isn't lost, but you don't actually always get to appreciate the intensity and the complexity of these things, just simply because of the staging of the action. The breakdowns are super cool because they actually do show you those different elements.
Yeah, and because there's such a ramp up of dust and debris on this movie, because on the first one we have some, but now this is really, really massive. Sometimes on some shots you don't even see anything. You literally don't see anything. You just see dust and things flying through. It's a really cool movie to watch big. Like, I really recommend people to watch it on the cinema or to watch it on a projector, because this movie does not work on a small screen at all. Like, if you watch it on an iPhone or on a laptop, I would not advise you to watch it, because you lose all those little details. You lose all those little small volumetric clouds and all these little really minute pieces of debris that are flying through on the movie. It's really, really stellar work, from ILM.
Yes. One of my favorite things to happen in this film, Hugo, actually is sort of not tornado related, although it occurs because of the tornado. It's when that water tower falls in the town, and sort of floods the town. I think it's that big moment you kind of need in one of these films to feel very like, oh, shit's happening, basically. And I think ILM also pulled that off really well too. It's a practical effect done with as much as they could do on set with a huge water tower like that, and then with a lot of digital extension of water. So apart from the tornadoes in the film, there's actually a lot of other kinds of effects that needed to be orchestrated here. And that was kind of one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, that entire cinema sequence and in the town with the water, but then also you have a train that capsizes as well. You have like a train, not a train, it's like one of these cable car. Yeah. That also, so there's a lot of really cool effects driven scenes, shots on those sequences, which is great to see as well. Yeah.
But are there enough cows in the film, Hugo? Because I don't seem to remember seeing any flying cows in Twisters, and I was a bit disappointed. I wonder if the conversation had come up just to put one in the background. Maybe there is one, and we just don't know. But that is obviously a landmark event in Twister.
Yeah.
And I guess they probably thought it was a bit corny to do it again.
Oh man, it would have been great. I didn't think it would have been
The audience
corny.
would have gone nuts, don't you reckon?
They would have screamed on the cinema. It would have been so cool. If they remember. I mean, of course, we're we are old men, like I mean, the film has been around for
Speak
a long
for yourself,
time.
Hugo.
Same age as me. But if you think about it, like this is definitely a movie for the new audiences. I think also it's quite smart for it to call itself Twisters and not Twister 2. And I think that's a really smart thing, because I can guarantee you that a lot of people that watch this movie have never seen the first one. That, to me, looking at the actors involved and looking at how famous they are now on this new generation, and thinking of how the general audience, the younger people audience, deals with these things. Like, a lot of them don't care about old movies. They don't watch old movies. And for them, a film from 96 is going to be too old, because it's going to be before they were born. And so I don't think the cow would have landed. I no point intended. I don't think it would have landed. I don't think they will know. They wouldn't have known what it is,
Fair
that's
enough.
that's the reality we're facing now. We're old, man. But it is funny that it's called Twisters. Actually, it's like Alien and Aliens. It's a really smart idea to call it Twisters.
It's clever. It's super clever, I think.
Super clever. Yeah.
So, Hugo, as we wrap up this episode, there's one thing I cannot believe we haven't mentioned, although it relates to the first Twister, and that is that, of course, that film was the follow-up to Jan de Bont's Speed.
Yeah.
Right? As in, it was his film after Speed. Now, I know why he got given Twister, because, there's a frenetic side to it that obviously people saw in Speed. And after Twister, I don't think Jan de Bont really made another great film. Let's all be honest about that. But, I was kind of holding my tongue on the Jan de Bont mention with Twister, Hugo, but just to remind everybody that he did make Speed and Twister, which are two awesome, awesome action films. Yeah. That's really all I wanted to bring up.
Where is young de Bont? Where is he? Where is he? Is he gonna do a comeback? It would have been nice.
It would be nice.
His last movie is 2012, so it's been a long, long time. It's been a long time. Which is sad. I think we need more movies from him. I wonder if he was even in remotely involved, or even they talked to him. Probably not. I wouldn't assume not.
Unfortunately, on Twister and Speed 2 and some other films, he got a reputation for being really hard to work with.
Yeah.
And I think that can mean that actors don't want to work with him, but also studios and other producers might find him too hard to wrangle, even if he was producing these incredible pieces. So, yeah, that's essentially, as I understand it, why he hasn't got another film. But
yeah, okay.
Anyway, he did make two great ones.
And what films were they? They were legendary movies. That is true. Having talked about that, actually, it's funny that you're saying that. I don't think Twisters will ever become a legendary movie. But I thought it was a really great movie for the new audiences, and has no connection with the first one whatsoever. But in my heart, I hope that people that watch the second one, maybe they'll go back and watch the first one. Maybe they will, because maybe they'll be curious about it, and because it's a really good movie, the first one. So I really, if anyone is listening that hasn't watched the first Twister, go and watch it, because it's a fantastic movie. Even if it's only for Bill Paxton, because he's great on the movie.
He's great. The whole, just the way that movie unfolds is just like a great cinema action film. Yeah. And as you say, popcorn flick. And as we keep saying, this film, Twisters, does a great job. A great job of doing that. Yeah. Just possibly made for millennials, and that just meant that it missed a little bit of that 90s action feel to it. So, I loved watching it. I had a great time. It just didn't quite nail the Twister vibe. That's all. Yeah. But still really cool.
Cool, man.
Okay, well, thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Hugo, always fun to talk about Twister movies with you. Catch everyone later.
We're doing Sharknado now. Is that what we're saying? Like, we're going to do Sharknado. It does have VFX. It does have VFX.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.